I'm now going to show the integrated mounting option of the FREEslim. For this, a pocket is milled into the outside of the cabinet, into which the PowerPad of the FREEslim fits exactly later on. We carefully insert it, then screw it in securely from the inside. There is also a milling here in the panel at the front, which I will later cover with a matching cap. This means that both the technology and the milling are hidden as much as possible, giving the cabinet a very high quality appearance, ideal for glass display cases, glass fronts, or for anyone who wants to stand out with concealed technology compared to surface-mounted technology. We begin the integrated installation by covering the milling at the front edge with a plastic cover. To do this, we simply place this cover here, which hides the milled edge of the panel. Then I take our PowerPad and place it precisely into the milled pocket. Now I position the PowerPad at the top and screw it in from the inside. For screwing in, we are using Torx 15 screws in this particular case. We also have the option of using another type of screw, which is called a carcass connector screw, to fasten several carcasses side by side so that they are nicely and precisely aligned in a row. Then we have cover caps, and finally, if the side panel is thicker than 16 millimeters, we have an additional cover that will later be placed on the PowerPad here. Let's take a look inside the carcass. Here we can clearly see the two drill holes, which are specifically used for securely attaching the PowerPad inside the cabinet. I take the pad, carefully place it in here, hold it up at the very top, and by inserting and then tightening the screw right here, I fasten the fitting. 2 screws are completely sufficient in this case. With that, the lift fitting is now already properly installed and securely fastened here, and now I have the option to fine-tune the force adjustment through this hole. As long as the cabinet is not yet in its final position, I can also make all other adjustments from the outside. If there is a need to make further adjustments later on, there is always the option to loosen these 2 fixing screws, even in the cabinet's final position, and remove the fitting from the front. Later, I can also insert it again from the front and reinsert the 2 screws, which, by the way, find their threads at these 2 points here. Of course, I repeat the same steps on the other side of the cabinet as well. First, insert the cover here. Then, take the PowerPad and carefully place it right here. After that, you can check again exactly where the through hole is for the mounting thread. Then slide the fitting slightly upwards. A tip from me, the fitting is still accessible from the outside for force adjustment and damper settings. As long as that's the case, I would recommend making the adjustments now. That means now hang the front panel, check the damping, see if the opening angle is correct, and as long as the cabinet is standing here, I can still align everything quite comfortably. Afterwards, once the damping works and the force support is set correctly, I mount the cabinet on the wall. I've rearranged things a bit. That's because I need the space here now to work on my front panel. Specifically, we're now going to mount the front connectors, which we'll later use to attach the front to the lever arms onto the front panel. For that, I need certain measurements, which I've marked here. As you might expect, these depend on the thickness of the cabinet side panels, the setback of the front, how everything is positioned vertically, and you can find the exact measurements in the installation manual accordingly. I've determined them for my cabinet here, and now I'm placing the connector onto the front panel. For the integrated mounting method, it's especially important that the hooks are positioned at the outer edge of the front. The screws are already included. We generally recommend carefully marking the hole with an awl first, as this makes it easier to screw into the melamine surface later. That's taken care of now. Now we'll reattach the handle. Now, we can carefully hang the front panel into the arms of the fitting. To do this, I'll first open the fitting, which means I have this red clip here. I carefully pull on this loop, which is specifically designed to allow me to open the lever arm in a safe and controlled manner. After that, I reach out and grab the middle section in order to gently remove this tab from its position. I do the same on the other side. Now we take the front panel, and you can see here that we have large mounting openings which make it easy to align even with larger fronts and heavier weights. I insert it here and do the same on the other side. Then the lever arm locks securely into place. In this case, I see that the front panel closes by itself. This is because we generally deliver the fitting set to the lowest power setting. We do this to minimize the risk. This is especially important when opening the fitting. Since there is a lot of tension or force support here, we want to make the whole process safe, which is why the fitting is set to the lowest power level. To now adjust this to the weight of the front panel, I take the cordless screwdriver and take a look at the adjustment options I have here. This area, clearly visible, is the power adjustment. Then we have an opening angle adjustment, and we have an adjustment for the damping when closing. Now at this point, I need to carefully keep the front part open and gently reach in here, making sure not to disturb anything inside. With a positive bit, and by turning it, I am able to gradually increase the amount of force that is applied. That already had a noticeable effect. However, I have a very wide range of force adjustment here. The force was too high now, so I'll set it back again. And now I see that I have a better opening. I have to do this equally on both sides. Other adjustments, which I already mentioned, opening angle limiter at 107 degrees, then I close or lower the front below 90 degrees, turn counterclockwise, and the opening stops at 90 degrees. Another adjustment I can make here. I look at the closing speed and see in this case that it is too low, meaning the front closes too slowly. We have a damper in both power packs, and to regulate this, I can now deactivate one damper. I'll show you here how that's done. Here I also have a Torx 15 fitting, which I can set to off from on to off. If I open it now, I can see here that the damper does not extend. So one damper is deactivated, and the closing speed is significantly higher. So once again, there are three adjustment options. I have the force adjustment here, the damper adjustment here, and the opening angle adjustment here. The damper and opening angle adjustments are just small switches, meaning I only turn them a few degrees. Here I have a plastic fitting with a Torx 15, which means please operate it by hand. As you can see here, please do not use a power screwdriver. For the force adjustments, however, I need high torque, and accordingly, we have a PZ fitting here that I can use with a power screwdriver. So Torx 15 manually, PZ with a power screwdriver. Ideally, I make adjustments to this component for the integrated version while the cabinet is still securely on my workbench. That's my tip. Align the front so that everything runs smoothly here. Then I move the entire cabinet into its final position against the wall. The cabinet is hanging in the correct position. Of course, it's easier to handle without the front attached. Now we'll hang the front panel. All the adjustments we needed for this front have already been made on the workbench. I'm hanging the front now and checking again to make sure everything really fits. I see the force setting is correct. The damping is appropriate. And the opening angle limiter set to 107 degrees is just right. Now I can make some fine adjustments to the force setting. For this, I have a cutout here, a hole through which I can reach the force adjustment screw with the cordless screwdriver. This allows me to fine-tune individual details. If further adjustments are needed, for example, if the opening angle limiter needs to be readjusted, or the fine-tuning of the force isn't quite right yet, or if you want to take another look at the scale, you can of course remove the fitting from the front again. To do this, I remove the front panel again, just as we did before. Remove the front panel here. Then I loosen the two Torx screws. I start loosening them with the screwdriver and can then remove them a bit faster by hand. And now I have the opportunity to carefully pull the fitting out from between these two covers and then take another look at the force scale, the opening angle limiter and the damper settings. If necessary, readjust them as needed. Next, I carefully reinsert the fitting right here, all the way to the back until it stops. Then I carefully raise the entire fitting, the PowerPad, once using the lever, and then I find my screw points again. Now carefully and gently fix the PowerPad back in the correct position. These are Torx screws, intentionally dark in color, because these points are specifically the only parts of the mechanism that remain visible. Now I can hang the front panel back in place. Everything works again, just as it was set before. To finish, there are two more important points. For connecting two cabinets together with an integrated FREEslim fitting, there is a special cabinet connector screw, or rather, a combination of screw and sleeve. This means that in the end, you can pull two cabinet sides together and then finally secure the cabinets in a row on the wall after they have been properly aligned. This is usually accomplished with wood screws in the lower section of the cabinets. To ensure this in the upper section as well, you can make a through hole slightly offset. The drilling measurements can be found in the assembly instructions, through which you can then insert the screw and sleeve from both sides to connect both cabinets together. Finally, there are two protective cover caps that cover up the hole for the force adjustment. With this, I have carefully assembled a modern wall cabinet with innovative lift technology, where the focus is solely on the stored items, on what needs to be kept. The mechanism disappears inside the side panel. Of course, I either need an adjacent cabinet to cover this visible side of the fitting, or a row of cabinets, and at the end, a final cover panel. That's it. You can find further support on our website, kesselbermer.com, and with that, see you next time.